We're in the archive of the Britten-Pears Foundation, and all around us are manuscripts and papers relating to Benjamin Britten and his life partner Peter Pears and their circle. They're a real mixture. There are obviously the composition, drafts and finished products of Benjamin Britten's composing activity, but there's also a lot of administrative documentation relating to their domestic life together here in Suffolk. And I think that mixture of high metropolitan culture and at the same time local domestic life is extremely relevant when we come to look at Britten's 1947 opera Albert Herring. Albert Herring's set in a fictional East Suffolk town in the year 1900, and it's a gently satirical story of a young greengrocer who's shy and rather repressed and surrounded by a repressive society. All around him there's his mother and the policeman and the vicar and the lady of the big house telling him what to do. It centres on the Mayday festival in the town, where none of the girls of the town turn out to be virginal enough to be crowned as the May Queen, and as a result Albert, who is undoubtedly virginal, is crowned as the May King instead, and this sets off a farcical chain of events in which Albert ends up going on a drunken spree, blowing his prize money, and sampling some of the rougher elements of life that hitherto he'd been shielded from. He grows up a little bit in the course of the opera, but at the end comes back, ties on his apron and goes back to work in the greengrocer's shop. I think there's certainly some autobiography here. When Britten wrote this, he was in his mid-30s. He'd been born and brought up, to an extent, in East Anglia, but he'd gone off to London, he'd lived there, he'd mingled with the creative figures of the time, he'd gone to the USA and wondered whether to settle there. He'd accepted that he was homosexual and formed a life partnership which both sustained him but at the same time put him at odds with the law. And so he comes back to the county that he grew up in, now seeing it with something of the eyes of an outsider. It's a very gentle and affectionate satire. The worthies of the town are poked fun at rather than excoriated, and the naughtiness that Albert gets up to is really pretty mild. And I think that's quite fitting, because Britten himself wasn't particularly given to riotous debauchery. There's a bit in the second act where the children of the town chant out the menu for the Mayday feast. Pink blancmange and jelly, sausagey rolls and trifle in a great big bowl, and that would have been right up Britten's street. In fact, I'm pretty sure that there are receipts for all of those things in the papers that we see around us.
Sausagey rolls, trifle in a